everyone. So, our topic is definitely on the I will do this later for most business owners. And listen, I understand there's no judgment. It is a scary thing to think about. But I think it's even scarier not, to actually have your head in the sand and not get this information. So, active shooter preparedness. Our guest today is Chanan, CEO of Magen Protection Solution. So let's go. So good morning, everyone. Paula Madison-Sierra. Another episode of 10 at 10. I hope you guys are having an amazing day so far. So, today, our guest on the show is Hanan Smith, CEO of Magen Protection Solutions. And listen, he's going to share. Hanan, thanks for being welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here today. I mean, it's a topic that not many want to discuss, but I'm excited to share information, valuable information for people to know, and hopefully never need to use it. But if they do, it will save their life.
Can I tell you, it still frustrates me that this is a topic of the time, but like here we are, right? Even this morning, I'm sitting on my couch having a cup of coffee before I start my day, and another incident in a high school. Our kids are being subjected to this every
Mhm.
day. I can't even think of what that must be like in a school situation. Did you see anything about that this morning?
I haven't heard that. I haven't had a chance to. It's like you said. It's just every day. It's just it's bad. It is. It's a shame, and it's schools, kids. So it's a shame that it's happening every day.
It kills me. I mean, because I have to say, I mean, I grew up in an environment where I didn't see any of this in my school. I mean, there was always that angry kid, right?
Mhm.
But it never went to that level. And so, but here we are. So, um, how did you get to this point and made a decision to start this business?
Business. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. When I grew up in Israel, I took the bus when I was 9 years old. Everybody does that. It's not something unique. Kids, when they are that young, get on a bus and a public transportation. I was in a stop in an area called Givat Tzarfatit, which is right north of Jerusalem, inside Jerusalem. And somebody got on a bus with a knife and wanted to stab us. I mean, the passengers. And I was sitting right behind the driver because as a young boy, you want to be next to the driver to tell him, hey, this is my stop. This is my
Yeah.
stop. I was sitting next, so right next to the door. And the person came on the bus and wanted to kill, basically stab the people on the bus. The bus driver, who was very unshaped, old guy, jumped out of his chair, kicked the guy in the chest, controlled the situation way before the police or anybody else arrived there. And it showed me at that moment that a single person can save everybody on the bus, completely passengers, 75 people, 50 people on the bus. You can be saved by one. I wanted to be just like him. I really did. And
Wow.
then a few years later, I became a lieutenant in the Israeli Defense Forces. And my whole objective and mission was to respond to active shooters, period. That's the only sole thing I did with me and my soldiers. I commanded over 200 at the 4 years, about 45 at one time. And my solely response was to respond to active shooters. So I know what works and what doesn't know. And I made it a mission in my life to give those unique tools and skills to people.
Oh man, you gave me chills just now because I realized most people in a threatening situation freeze, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know if you've ever heard this term that is get off the X.
Mhm.
Whenever something happens, get
Correct.
off the X, right?
Mhm.
But most people are like deers in the headlights, sadly.
Mhm.
So that's what we're going to discuss today. Things that if you're prepared and you see the situation happening, then you can respond to it. So before we even get to that,
Mhm.
what things, uh, what steps can we take? What preventative measures can we take to even recognize these incidents in the workplace? So, before we even get to something happening, what should we be doing as business owners to prevent this in the workplace?
Absolutely. It's a great question because we all about preventive, right? It's like putting a seatbelt in a car,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You want to do something like that. So, as far as preventative measures, like we make sure that there is cybersecurity, that we protect, against data and anything like that, you want to make sure you protect your biggest asset, which is employees and staff. And the way to do it, the number one thing is to first do a security assessment and risk management, which means you actually look at your facility and you see what are your vulnerable points in the facility and you fix them. It's very inexpensive to do, but if you fix them, you can solve an active shooter right there by making it very hard for them to get even in your building or your school or your workplace. So number one will be to fix that. Number two is to make sure that there are protocols, like you said. A lot of people, they freeze, they panic because they don't know what to do. Now, protocols have to do steps. It's not like a mission statement. We don't accept violence in the workplace. That's great, but
Right.
you have to actually put policies in place, procedures, and most importantly, training. When a person is trained, they will know what to do. So to
Mhm.
prevent it, I would say is the assessments, the policies, procedures, and training.
All right, let me throw like a ball at you here from left field. What happens if it's someone in the office?
Very good. Absolutely. This is why you must have policies because let's say you fire a person, right? I had this with a client and they made a determination not to tell the employees that they're going to fire them, right? Because they were about to fire a few people. They didn't want to rally people. They didn't want to make not many people know about it. And they didn't tell the employees that they're about to fire this person. And actually, the employee got fired and he showed up with a firearm
Mm.
and he still had the access to the building. People let him in because nobody around knew that there was fired. So to answer your question is when you have those policies and procedures, one of the pieces of paper is when you fire somebody, when you have a client that's irritated with you, when somebody shows signs of violence, and we'll talk more about what are those signs look like, you have to have a sheet of paper that says step one, do this, step two, do this. So you're trying to make sure everybody knows about it, everybody knows who is the person that we're talking about, and to try and stop it before even they come in.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because of course the fear is if you don't have those, no one's prepared, right? For it, of
Mhm.
course, we're prepared for someone on the outside, but what
Correct.
if the person's
It's usually
ins
it's the inside. Yes,
and
it's
they already
usually.
know all the procedures and the wheres
Mhm.
and all of that, right?
Mhm.
How do we stop the violence before it happens? Are there any preemptive measures that we should be looking
Yes.
at?
Yes. We have to think of an active shooter as a one time and done, meaning think of it as a criminal that only does one act and never does it again, right? And we're going to talk more about why is it important to know. A person who's going to do an act of an active shooter wants to go out with a bang. Call it the Hall of Fame of active shooters, right? They want to be named after them. Like if I throw Uvalde in the air, Parkland in the air, those are great places, but what you associate yourself with is the horrific incidents that happen in those places. Columbine, right? So, meaning when a person who does an active shooter, they will post about it, they will talk about it, they will make sure you know that this is happening because this is a one time and done. We don't repeat it. Either they kill themselves, either they get imprisoned, either they get shot. They do not do it again, right? Which means if they want to do it, they want to be in what they consider memorable, right? So the first thing is you're going to have verbal threats. I'm going to do this. Secondly, I'm going to text about it. A lot of my clients tell me, "Hey, we got this text message." Okay. Another one will be is emails, right? Then you have to listen to the words. Some people before, let's say weeks before all those shootings happens, we always go back and we say, okay, what happened? They gave us indication. They posted it on social media. They went on Instagram. They went on Facebook. They told you weeks before they bought the gun. They show pictures of the firearm, right?
Yeah.
They are advertising their act. Okay, that's how we prevent it. we catch it fast in that moment.
Have you ever read that book, Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky?
I have not. No,
It's
I'm
you
interested.
gotta read it because it is so literally this topic. Because
Hmm.
in the book, he really lays out this assumption that when someone commits a crime or is about to commit a crime, most well-adjusted humans talk about it. They can't hold it. Even when they try to hide it, it can't stay hidden for too long because it starts coming out of them. Even if they get away with it,
Hmm.
they'll start talking about it or hinting about it or dropping the. So really, it makes perfect sense that they're advertising it,
They
especially
are.
for a personality type like this. They're really
Hmm.
going over the top. But let me ask you, like now, there's so much technology for everything. Is there technology out there that you can use to monitor as a
Yes.
business owner that you could pay for? I mean, I don't know if that's a privacy issue, but is that something that can be done?
Yes, you can monitor like you monitor your employees doing work, right? What type of websites they go on to, how much time they spend on their LinkedIn, how many emails they send today. You can go as long if it's on a laptop or AI, you absolutely can monitor those activities. And that's part of having the policies. Meaning, if you are the manager, if you're a direct manager and you have responsibilities, one of your responsibility is to do that, is to monitor those employees, is to monitor the social media. We actually had a case with a client that was a big disaster was prevented because they did that. They called me and they said, hey, we found this social media post about our employee who's coming to do something and harming actually another event. So we stopped them because of that social media platform. So if you actually monitor that, and like you said, people talk about it. They're not special agents. They're not trained to put up a face of a different type of personality. They will talk about it because they want to go out in a bang. That's
Mm.
it. So your
Oh,
job is to prevent it. Yeah,
I mean, and really, we have the means. It's kind of right there, isn't it?
it
So
is.
it's really just setting up those procedures, like you're saying. If we
Mm-hmm.
know that these are part of our day-to-day things that we do and check-ins, I would love to hear some of the lawyers weigh in on this privacy-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Can we monitor them overall or just the devices? Because really, the device, sometimes people forget that their work email isn't really their email, and it can be monitored. So if you're using your work computer and your work devices, those
Mm-hmm.
definitely can be monitored because they're not
Mm-hmm.
yours. All right, so let me ask you a big one. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about all of these preventative preemptive measures, and what
Mm-hmm.
should we do, what should we be thinking about if an active shooter event does happen? What should we know?
Okay. So when, first of all, right before it happens, you should look at all the signs, right? All the signs that we talked about, all of those signs, and then stop it at that point, and then doing the protocols. Now, when an active shooter actually happens, there are two main things that we must do. Number one, we must work as a team. The weakness, what we always think of an active shooter, think about it. Active shooter equals mass shooting, which means they are trying to come to masses. It's not a crime against one on one. It's not a mugging. It's not an assault. This is something where they want as many people as possible in my act, as many. So number one is to work as a team. Each one thinks of an individual, or each one tries to work as an individual. It won't work. It has to be collaborative. And the most important element that I don't hear anybody speak about is, what about the shooter's weakness? They have so many weaknesses. We always think about the shooter being so strong and so powerful, and we give them way too much credit. I always say it. You see those people in the courtroom right after shooting, and you say that's the person who got 100 people in a nightclub, that's the person who got 100 people in a movie theater, that's the person that killed 50 people. How? You look at them, they don't look like the typical assertive, aggressive, strong-minded criminal. These are weak individuals who come from a weak perspective. They have so many weaknesses. Number one, they have never done it before. An active shooter
Mm.
can never do this before. How well do you do a task for the first time? This complicated. You can go to the shooting range, you can shoot in a mountain. It's not the same to do this. So you get better on the job, which means if he goes to one office space or one classroom and he does his act and he nobody stopped him there, he can then go to the second one, right? And he learns from it. But if you stop the person right there, then you stop it. They never done it before. They're going to post about it, right? We have the numbers. We have the numbers. This is one person in the United States. Active shooters, most of them are done by a sole person. How is it that one person can do it? So if you do that stuff, act as a team, okay? And then go after the shooter's weakness. Entering and exiting rooms, how can they just go between one room, reload? I mean, nobody stops them.
Yeah.
That's what we need to focus on, is how do we get in positions in the facility? What do everybody do? Each person, if he's in one classroom, what does the other classroom do? If he's in one office on one floor, what does the office below do? We always think about running, but if you right now inside a room and there's one door in, one door out, and there's a shooter, where are we going?
Yeah.
Right? We need to work together as a team. So the two top things to remember: number one, work as a team. Number two, go after the shooter's weakness. I was a sharpshooter. Many weaknesses we have, right?
Yeah.
You have to go after those weaknesses, okay?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I always think that in a moment of crazy like that, the best thing to do for the entire group is take a breath and
Mhm.
stop for a second. Just take a breath, And actually, for you guys listening out there, I'm hearing Hanan loud and clear because one of the things that if it does happen to me is take a breath. We got to work as a team,
Mhm.
you know.
Yes.
So, what are some of those mistakes that folks make in the moment? What are
Mhm.
some of those really big mistakes, and how can we avoid those mistakes?
Okay, so number one is not believing that we can do something, right?
Mm,
So you already in your mind, you're starting to shut off. Okay, so if you're in a situation, when you're in a situation, any situation, right? It doesn't have to be active shooter, anytime that involves conflict, right? Especially in an active shooter where it's the toughest position to be in as far as life-saving skills, you must not be weak mentally and say, I have nothing to do, right?
mm,
So first you have to be strong to do. Now the second thing is, I always say the response will depend on our correlation to the shooter. What does that mean?
mm,
In an active shooter, we have only two scenarios. That's it. Either we are right now in the immediate vicinity of the shooter, or we are at the room or the area next to them. What does that mean? It means, let's say I'm right now in a classroom or right now in my office, and God forbid I'm the one staring down the barrel, right? Or my colleagues, meaning he's or she is in my vicinity. My response is going to be different than the person in the bathroom or in the outside conference room. We can never have the same response, right? So when we do this training, we divide that. And the number one thing is to make sure what is your correlation to the shooter. If your correlation to the shooter is A, B, and B. I always compare it to a pilot, right? When you
mm,
blow an engine, you want the type of pilot that says, okay, I'm going to go A or I'm going to go B. It's a bad situation, but they know either A or B. You don't want the pilot that says, what should we do? And that's the problem of the people when they are in the situation.
yeah,
If you're in any situation, like I said, if somebody's trying to punch you, if somebody's trying to mug you, if somebody's having a confrontation with you, they are acting in the now, which means if you are thinking about your response, you're always going to lose. You have to respond. So what you need to do is you need to either ask, am I an A or an B? That's it. It's either A or B. And I do either A or B.
yeah,
That's it. And that will be depending on the correlation between me and the shooter. Am I in the immediate vicinity? Same in a shopping center. If you right now are at a store, a grocery store, you need to ask yourself, okay, am I right now in the immediate danger, or it's about to come to me, meaning 4 seconds. When I do this training, I say you have 4 seconds to get ready. That will be the response. What is my relationship to the attacker? Yes.
yeah. Wow. Okay. Hey, listen, guys, and after the show, I'm hoping that you guys drop in a couple of questions for Hanan as well and reach out to him. Uh, I wanted to share this story within a question, which
Mhm.
is Are there any things that we can keep on our person? Any little things that we could just maybe have on our keychain or
Mhm.
something like that? Because I mean, keys are typically something that we have kind of near or on us in some way or form. Is there anything that we could keep on us that would help?
Yeah, first I'll leave the biggest one for your story, right? Because I love that one, but I'll let you share that. But I always tell people, think of a shooter, right? They're weak individuals. They stop upon resistance. Every single active shooter that happened, every one of them, as soon as there was resistance, they stopped. Either killed themselves or they gave up. Like the Parkland shooting, he just went shopping afterwards, right? And then we had the Texas shooting that he just stopped, and we have so many that killed themselves. So what we know is if you have something in your purse that you can start putting up a fight, they're going to stop. Because upon resistance, plus you don't have other choice, right? If a person
Yeah,
is in front of you trying to harm you. So like you said, car keys, you have your phone, you have anything in the bag, any object that can start being a detour and showing them, you want their head to start shrinking. It's all a mentally, everything starts mentally. Once they start realizing that their mission or whatever they had started attempting to do is starting to narrow down, they're going to start quitting. It's like anybody else, right? If you start quitting on yourself, your body gives in too. So when they start seeing it, and the way to show them it is to show them that they're not really succeeding. And like I said, they've never done it before, so you don't want them to get the confidence as we're going. So yes, anything in the purse, keys, phones, if you have water bottles, right? Anything you have in that purse. If we're in a conference room, we have a tablet, iPad, anything like that that can aid us in fighting back will be very, very good for us. Yes, and I would love to. Your story is pretty
oh
great.
yeah. No, I was just telling Hanan about this. Like I wanted to know what are those safety things that we could use, and I was telling him about I heard that a stopper, a door stopper, could be a very helpful thing to just have in your bag, your knapsack as a kid. It's a non-defensive item, but
Mhm.
that holds a great power. So, my little niece, I said to her, hey, because with all these school shootings, this is something that I want you to have in your backpack. If there's ever a noise in the hallway that makes you uncomfortable, and you listen, no matter who you are, whether you're older or very young, there are sounds that we hear that do not sound right and literally sound threatening. And so, what are those sounds, right? And so, there's a little incident at our school where the water bottle guy, the water bottles fell all over the place. Water was everywhere, and it just kind of fell over on his cart. And she got up, she went to her book bag, and she pulled out the door stopper that I
Love
told her
it.
to keep in her bag, and she stuck it under the
I
door.
love it.
Right.
Yeah.
So the teachers, because the teachers have had the training in some schools, and
Mhm.
I'm hoping that more schools are doing training on like
Mhm.
this. But the teacher had the training, saw what she did, didn't say anything, called my niece and said, this is what your daughter did today in class. She immediately called me and went, this was your doing, wasn't it? I know this because these are things that you would have told us when we were little, you know? And I'm like, oh yeah, she did it. Oh yeah, she did. It's like, but and that's why I was like, wait a second, are there little things that
Mhm.
we could keep on our person? But I didn't even think of course, you have your keys as well, because that's a defensive tool,
It's a
right? Put it
great tool.
between your
Yeah.
fingers, you have your keys,
Mhm.
and
We
fight
have
with whatever you can.
anything you can, anything, and they'll stop. They're weak mentally. It's upon resistance. Yeah. Think about this. Okay, who is the easiest to attack? A person hiding on a desk, a person running away from you, or a person fighting you.
Yeah,
You don't want to be in a situation where somebody's fighting you. You prefer to go to the one who's hiding first, or this, or shoot the guy who's trying to run away. But the person fighting you, the guy, the girl fighting you, that's for them. It's
yeah.
it's bad. So that's why we should do it. Yeah.
When I was a kid, one of my older brothers used to play like the great, like much older brother. So, when me and my friends were over, I mean, he was like in his 20s, late 20s, and we were like 6, 7,
Mhm.
we'd play Monster. He was like the best monster because I swear he could hold on to a door, make it shake, and we would just run around in circles, panicking. And remember, it's like one person, there's like 10 of us,
We have
right?
so many. We have many.
There
How
are
is it
many,
that
right? And so you forget, even as 6, 10, 6 year olds, we could have taken him down or something. But we
yes.
were in such panic mode because he was doing this great monster. And we were in that moment of believing it, right?
Hmm.
And as you're saying all of this, it just reminded me of that when we were kids,
Hmm.
because you do get so panicked, it becomes bigger than you think it is. But even 10, 6, 7 year olds could take down an adult, you know, if they got the information, if they were
Hmm.
prepared, right, for the knowledge of it. Let me ask you a question here. So, after, because I know you go into big corporations, even smaller corporations, and do this training for your clients. After this really big psychological training, do you
Hmm.
do like a follow-up? Because I cannot see that working in the first, like, oh, just come in for one training, we're good. um how do you do that?
Well, it's amazing. First, we start with the first one, and then people see, oh my God, we have a plan. Like we can do something. Because everybody at the beginning, there's a lot of trainings out there, but this is not the same. I'm calling we are the first responders. Like we are the one. You can't delegate your safety. So when we come in, we do this training. We show them exactly what to do with them. If it's
Yeah.
a school, what do you do with the kids? What do you do with the other employees? What do you do with your guests? Every single person has a place and they all can go home that day, every single one of them.
Mm.
But after a while, it is overwhelming to start. But after a while, we recommend between 6 months to a year, depending on the foot traffic of your business. If your business has a high foot traffic and it's a pretty business that has a lot of tension in it, we recommend every 6 months. If it's a business that has lower foot traffic, still need to do it once a year. You do it with with your data security, you do it with your leadership training, your CPR training. Unfortunately, today, one of more training you need to add is prevention, for active shooter and other workplace violence, because you can take this to them. So yes, I would say every 6 to 1 year to do that.
I'm, one of the words that is coming to my head very clearly is empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
When you're empowered, like my little niece, she already know what to do to protect herself and just got right up and said, I know what to do. Boom. This is going to help. Right. So the big word that's coming out of this is this training with you is going to empower your employees. And like you said, everyone goes home that evening, you
And
know?
I'm telling you what, the team building, the camaraderie, think about it. We
Oh,
come
wow.
in and we're not even trying to do like a real team building, right? We're doing active shooter. The camaraderie between them, think about it. It's the toughest task as an active shooter. Once you guys come together through it, what else in the workplace we can't attack, right? The leadership that comes out of it, the team building, the motivation, the spirit, that's amazing outcome by itself.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so I feel like this topic could go on forever, Han. Thank you
You know,
so much. Are How can our viewers out there connect with you? Because I'm sorry, you property owners out there, real estate attorneys, landlords, big buildings, big retailers, smaller retailers, like how can you guys, and actually, professional services, because all my attorneys out there are going in and out of court, and really they're going in and out of very hard situations that they're not
mhm,
even thinking about on a day-to-day basis that could turn sour. And
mhm.
come to think of it, I mean, I know quite a few of my business owners out there who told me as we're designing their website, we have to really discuss whether we put the business's address out there, because
Wow.
we've had clients who are so aggressively threatening to us that we have questions about it. So how can people reach out to you and connect with you to hear more, maybe next steps?
Yeah, sure. So they can reach out via LinkedIn and message me there. They can visit my website, magenprotectionsolutions.com. They can send me an email at info@magenprotectionsolutions.com, and I'll be happy to answer all the questions that they have. I really want to help and educate people. If there are specific situations, I'll be happy to help them. LinkedIn or Magen Protection Solutions or info@magenprotectionsolutions.com, and I'll be happy to help them there.
By the way, follow-up question. Can you do this training virtually? Is it a face-to-face? How is that done? Is it like follow-up by virtual or initial
Yes.
face-to-face?
The
How do you?
initial has to be face to face. Has to be. I have to come to the facility. I have to show them the weak spots, right? The preemptive measures.
Yeah.
And then we do the physical training in their location because unfortunately the shooter will show up at their location. So I want to make sure that I want to train them in their location. Now the follow up can be via virtual and make sure if they have any situations, we help them with that. But the force training has to be in person physically. They have to see in their workplace, if it's a school in the school, if it's an office in that office, so they know exactly what to do and what not to do. Yes.
And also, do you work regionally, internationally, nationally? What
I'm
makes that?
international, mainly in the US. I travel all over the country, all over. I can be in LA, I can be in Michigan, I can be in Philadelphia, I can be in Texas. It's just clients are all over. So yes, I travel all over. Um, and it's very, very good training. Yeah. Compared to the what you're looking at liability versus the preemptive measures, it's not even half a percentage of what you'll be looking at if the God forbid there is something to do. So it's very
And
good. Yeah,
sometimes we're busy looking at the pennies falling out of our pockets, but we forget the dollar bills falling out of our back pocket as we're bending over and picking up those pennies, right? So,
right.
all right,
Yes.
so guys, reach out. You can connect to Hanan by his website or LinkedIn. He's on LinkedIn as well. SMSM. And of course, as always, while you're doing those operational rejigs, if marketing becomes part of that, reach out
Right.
to Power Marketing as well. My continued mission here is to share great information from what I call everyday experts and business owners, and of course, marketing as well. We air every Thursday at 10 a.m. live. This isn't pre recorded. This is as is on LinkedIn every Thursday. And also, we redo this over on YouTube as well. So, this pre-done video will be uploaded to YouTube as well. Thank you, viewers, so much for all the support and all the awareness and the sharing and the what's ups. Um, uh, uh, we're going to close out the show, but usually we close out with a quote. But Anand, do you have a quote for us to close out the show today?
Yeah. This is a quote I use with all my students, and I always say it all starts with the belief you're worth protecting. Period. If you believe you're worth protecting, you will get out of it. You will see your family. But if you don't believe you're worth protecting, you will not. So
Very
believe.
empowering.
Yeah.
Very empowering. Thank you so much, sir. I
Thank you.
appreciate you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Everyone have a great, great rest of the day. And thank you so much for watching this and doing the re-air later. So take care and have an amazing rest of the day.
Enjoy your day and week.
And we're